Spencer Srider made his long-awaited return. Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome into FBT Express on Thursday, April 17th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Let's take a look at Spencer Strider's debut, and he was pretty good. At the Blue Jays, 5+ innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, had 13 whiffs on 97 pitches. Scott, what did you see from Spencer Strider? Where have you moved him to in your rankings?
So he was pretty good, Spencer Strider. 13 swinging strikes on 97 pitches. Not an amazing rate like we're used to seeing from Strider, but a good rate. We got to talk about the velocity because it was down. And it wasn't down from what we were seeing in spring training, what we were seeing on his rehab assignment. It was right in line with that. But there was some hope, I think, that once he got into a game that counted and the adrenaline was up, that we'd see his old velocity. And we didn't. So his velocity in this start averaged 95.4 on the fastball. That's down about 2 miles per hour from 2 years ago when he was at his best. And same goes for the slider. He mostly just threw those 2 pitches, which is normal for Spencer Strider. But again, I think one of the hopes was that, okay, we saw him introduce the curveball last spring, and then it never really got a chance to play out because he got hurt. We saw him introduce a changeup more this spring and on the minor league rehab assignment, and maybe he'd mix in those more. He threw about 5 of each. It wasn't much. It was mostly fastball, slider. So he came back with basically the same approach, just with 2 miles per hour less of velocity. That's a notable drop. He was still good. Like I said, still missed bat. It's a decent rate. It's just like, we know Spencer Strider as this historic bat misser. In this game, in fact, he became the fastest pitcher ever to 500 strikeouts. Like in terms of innings, he did it in the fewest innings, getting to 500 strikeouts, and by a long shot. So in a way, it's like, well, Spencer Strider is going to have a hard enough time living up to himself, even without this velocity drop. What does it look like with the velocity drop? I think it's a very big question. I think he'll still be good, but it's a matter of how good. For now, I've moved him up to 13th in my starting pitcher rankings, which is ahead of like Jacob deGrom and Hunter Green. Imanaga. I was blanking on the name. Shona Imanaga. He's ahead of Shona Imanaga. And I would legitimately not trade if I had Spencer Strider. Like, I want to trade him for any of those guys. That's why I moved him ahead. But I'm not sure. I'm not confident he's going to rise much from there. Obviously, we know he has top 5 potential. I can't confidently say that I expect him to get there with the reduced velocity.
All right, let's move over to a couple other pitchers who were not as good as Spencer Strider on Wednesday. What do we do with these guys? And first up is Gavin Williams, who had a rough outing at the Orioles. 6 2/3 innings, 5 runs allowed, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, 2 homers allowed, 13 hard hits allowed in this game. It's a 4.58 ERA, 132 WHIP. Popular breakout candidate, Scott, but what are we doing with Gavin Williams right now?
Well, probably benching him, and that's even though he is in line for 2 starts next week. I could see maybe doing it in a points league, just looking to maximize volume, but I'm not confident with how the results will go. I believe it's Red Sox and Yankees he's scheduled to face, so not the best matchups either for Gavin Williams. Yeah, it's been a pretty big disappointment. I thought this spring, I wasn't just looking at results. I was looking at a lot of the underlying stuff, the way his fastball was playing, the amount of whiffs he was getting on it. And it all seemed very encouraging for a player with top prospect pedigree, a player who, as a rookie 2 years ago, looked pretty good. And I was thinking, okay, maybe we can throw out last year because of the elbow injury, and Gavin Williams is about to take off. Less confident in that now. I mean, the fastball hasn't played the same as it did this spring. He also seems to have eliminated the cutter that he developed last year, I think, because his elbow wasn't feeling well, but it was a good pitch for him. And he's just going fastball, slider, curveball now, or sweeper curveball, I should say. There is still that top prospect pedigree. The stuff is still really good for Gavin Williams. So I'm hopeful that given the Guardians' ability to maximize pitching outputs, they're great at that. I'm hopeful they'll keep working on Gavin Williams and get him to a good place. But that's a hope. That's not something I can say is going to happen for sure. So I'm just trying to keep him stashed for now, I think, and wait it out, see how it plays out, at least for a few more weeks.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back in FBT Express. What's the opposite of a pitcher's duel? Because that's what we had in Philadelphia. Robbie Ray at Aaron Nola, both not good. Robbie Ray, 4 innings, 4 runs allowed, 5 walks, did have 8 strikeouts here, but a 155 whip, 15 walks over 19 and a third innings for Robbie Ray. And on the other side, Aaron Nola, 5 and a third innings, 7 runs, 6 of those earned, 4 walks, did have 8 strikeouts. It's odd year Aaron Nola. It's happening again, Scott.
Odd things for Aaron Nola.
Are you doing anything with Ray or Nola? Do you bench either, or do you just kind of ride it out?
Oh, I don't bench Aaron Nola. I know the odd year thing. He has an ERA over 4, at least the last couple odd years he has. I don't really buy into that. I think it does indicate some vulnerability for Aaron Nola and how when he's not being really precise with his command, he can get hit hard. But even in those years where he had an ERA over 4, he was still basically must start in fantasy because he was giving so much volume, so many strikeouts with that volume, good whip. We've always known him to be a must start pitcher, basically. Different degrees of how valuable he is, but always valuable enough to keep in your lineup. And I think that'll remain true. I think if you try to pick and choose when to bench Aaron Nola, you're going to pick wrong, and you could pick it often enough, particularly I'm thinking from a roto context where you got that season-long accumulation. You could pick wrong enough that you end up missing out on all the good starts that makes Aaron Nola worthwhile. So I think you just plan him in your lineup and don't think about it too much. Robbie Ray, I'm less confident in Robbie Ray. Obviously former Cy Young winner, but that was several years ago, 1 surgery, major elbow surgery ago. And sort of like Gavin Williams, we were really bullish on Robbie Ray, seeing the things he was doing this spring in a way, we weren't just looking at results. We were looking at the process, and the process looked great. And the stuff just hasn't played the same once the season started. And it's especially concerning in Robbie Ray's case because he's always had bad control and gives up a lot of hard contact. So he needs to be like an elite bat misser to work. And he entered this game with like a 10% swinging strike rate, really bad. It did go up with this start, but we saw all the walks. So there's a lot of downside here for Robbie Ray. I think there's enough upside that I want to, like Gavin Williams, I want to stash him for now, but it won't be that many more weeks of this before I start to rethink that.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.